What happens to a child who grows up without applause? No trophies for participation, no constant praise. No one watching every move. Just silence, responsibility, and the quiet expectation to figure it out alone. That child does not grow weak. That child grows sharp. If you were raised in that environment, you know the feeling. Coming home to an empty house, solving problems before anyone else even knew they existed, learning early that comfort was earned, not handed out. You were not told you were special every day. You were told to be strong. You were told to handle it. And you did. That kind of upbringing does something powerful to the human mind. It rewires you. When applause is absent, your brain stops chasing it. When validation is rare, you stop depending on it. Instead of performing for attention, you perform for survival. And survival builds a different kind of confidence. Quiet. Steady. Unshakable. Psychology shows that when children are given space to solve problems on their own, they develop stronger decision-making skills. The brain adapts. It becomes more efficient under pressure. Stress becomes familiar, not frightening. You learn to regulate your emotions without an audience. You learn that panic does not solve problems, action does. You were not raised in a world of constant reassurance. You were raised in reality. And reality trained you well. You learned that life is not always fair. You learned that mistakes have consequences. You learned that no one is coming to rescue you. That lesson could have broken you. Instead, it built armor. But this armor is not about coldness. It is about capability. When you grow up without applause, you stop waiting for permission. You trust yourself because you had to. You develop instincts that others struggle to build. You become observant, strategic, independent. And here is the deeper truth. Growing up without constant praise forces you to build internal approval. You learn to clap for yourself. You learn to measure success by progress, not by noise. That is rare. That is powerful. In a world addicted to attention, you were trained in silence. In a culture obsessed with visibility, you mastered resilience behind closed doors. While others learned to seek validation, you learned to seek solutions. This is not a weakness. It is an advantage. When chaos hits, you stay steady. When criticism comes, you do not collapse. When others look around for support, you look inward for strength. That strength did not come from applause. It came from experience. And if you stay with me, you will see something even more powerful. You will understand why this silent upbringing created one of the most adaptable, resilient, and mentally tough generations in modern history. You will see how the absence of praise became the presence of power. Because sometimes the greatest gift is not recognition, it is resilience. And if you were raised without applause, you were not ignored. You were forged. And when you are forged in silence, something else happens. You stop confusing noise with value. You stop mistaking attention for respect. You begin to understand that validation is temporary, but capability is permanent. Growing up without applause trained your nervous system differently. You were not fed constant reassurance, so your brain did not become addicted to it. Modern psychology calls this intrinsic motivation. When rewards are not constantly handed out, the mind learns to generate its own drive. You act because it matters. You finish because it is right. You improve because growth feels necessary, not because someone is watching. That wiring makes you dangerous in the best possible way. You are not easily manipulated by praise. Flattery does not control you. You do not bend just to be liked. Your confidence does not spike with compliments or crash with criticism. It holds steady because it was built without external scaffolding. While others chase approval, you chase competence. And competence builds a foundation that cannot be shaken by silence. Think about that. If applause is your oxygen, rejection feels like suffocation. But if your oxygen comes from within, nothing external can starve you. That is emotional independence. That is strength most people never fully develop. You learned early that results speak louder than feelings. If something needed to be done, you did it. No announcement, no performance, just execution. That pattern repeated itself until it became identity. You became someone who handles things. And when life gets heavy, that identity protects you. Research on resilience shows that moderate stress, faced repeatedly and survived, increases emotional endurance. You were exposed to manageable challenges. You adapted. Your brain strengthened its response to pressure. Stress became a signal to act, not a reason to freeze. That is why you do not dramatize small obstacles. That is why you stay composed when others panic. You have seen difficulty before. You expect it. And expectation removes shock. But this emotional minimalism is not emptiness, it is efficiency. You do not waste energy broadcasting every thought or struggle. You conserve your focus for what truly matters. You move quietly, but you move consistently. There is power in that consistency. In a world overflowing with oversharing, you value privacy. In a culture addicted to instant gratification, you respect patience. In an era obsessed with image, you prioritize substance. And that discipline gives you leverage, because when you are not constantly seeking validation, you are free to build. When you are not refreshing for approval, you are progressing. When you are not performing for applause, you are sharpening your skill. This is your edge. The absence of applause did not make you invisible. It made you internally driven. It made you selective about where you invest your energy. It made you resilient against rejection and immune to shallow praise. You were trained to finish what you start, to earn what you want, to stand on your own feet without demanding recognition for every step. That mindset is rare now, but it is timeless. And if you fully understand it, you will realize something powerful. You do not need more applause to grow. You need more action. You need more self-trust. You need more belief in your own capability, because the strongest confidence is not built in front of a crowd. It is built when no one is watching, and you already know how to do that. And when you know how to build without being seen, you develop something even more valuable than confidence. You develop self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency is not about isolation. It is about capability. It is the quiet belief that whatever happens, you will find a way. That belief does not come from motivational quotes. It comes from repetition, from solving small problems alone, from making decisions without guidance, from facing consequences without a safety net. Your mind was trained through exposure. Each challenge you handled strengthened neural pathways linked to problem solving and adaptability. Cognitive flexibility grew because it had to. When situations changed, you adjusted. When plans failed, you recalculated. Over time, adaptation became automatic. That is adaptive intelligence. You do not freeze when life shifts. You pivot. You assess. You act. You were raised in a world that changed fast. Technology evolved, economies shifted, culture transformed. And instead of resisting, you learned to move with it. You became fluent in uncertainty. Most people fear change because it threatens comfort. You learned early that comfort is temporary. Stability is created, not guaranteed. That awareness makes you prepared instead of surprised. Prepared people lead. Your independence also shaped how you see responsibility. No one hovered over you. No one micromanaged every choice. You learned through experience. Mistakes were not disasters. They were lessons. Accountability was not a punishment. It was a teacher that built ownership. Ownership changes everything. When you believe your outcomes are tied to your actions, you become proactive. You stop blaming circumstances. You start adjusting strategy. This internal locus of control is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. And you developed it without realizing. You value competence over charisma. You trust consistency over hype. When someone proves themselves through action, you respect them. When someone only talks, you wait for evidence. That discernment protects your energy. But there is something deeper here, because you learn to rely on yourself, you also learn to stand alone. You can sit in silence without feeling empty. You can face setbacks without collapsing. You can rebuild without begging for rescue. That is rare strength. And yet, self-sufficiency is not about rejecting support. It is about choosing it wisely. You do not seek help from desperation. You seek it from strategy. That difference is maturity. In unstable times, adaptable minds rise. In uncertain environments, those who can think independently thrive. When systems fail, when plans fall apart, when comfort disappears, the self-sufficient do not crumble. They create new paths. That is who you are becoming, or who you have always been. Raised without applause, you were trained to survive without spotlight. You were conditioned to think before reacting, to act before complaining, to endure before quitting, and endurance becomes momentum. The world may celebrate noise, but history respects builders. It respects those who move quietly and deliver consistently. It honors those who can stand steady when everything shakes. Your strength is not loud. It does not beg for recognition. It simply shows up again and again, ready to adapt. That readiness is power. And the more you embrace it, the more unstoppable you become. And yet, even the strongest armor has weight. When you are trained to handle everything alone, asking for help can feel unnatural. When you are praised rarely, you may learn to measure your worth by what you produce. Achievement becomes proof that you matter. Productivity becomes the language of value. Rest can start to feel uncomfortable, almost undeserved. This is the hidden cost of growing up without applause. Emotional independence can slowly turn into emotional isolation. You become so skilled at carrying your own burdens that you forget you are allowed to set them down. You process pain internally, you solve silently, you endure privately. On the outside, you appear steady. On the inside, you may be carrying more than anyone realizes. Psychology calls this suppression resilience. In crisis, it works. It keeps you clear-headed. It allows you to function under pressure. But over time, if emotions are never expressed, they can harden. Vulnerability can feel like weakness. Openness can feel risky. And yet, the truth is deeper than that. Your ability to endure does not mean you are not human. It means you were trained to survive. But survival is only the foundation. Growth requires something more. It requires conscious strength, not just conditioned strength. The same discipline that helped you adapt can help you evolve, because when someone raised without applause chooses to open up, it is not casual. It is intentional. When you trust someone, it is earned. When you commit, it is real. Your loyalty runs deep because you understand what it means to stand alone. That depth is powerful. You do not chase attention, but you value respect. You do not demand recognition, but you honor integrity. You may not broadcast your emotions, but you feel them intensely. Your quiet does not mean emptiness. It means control. Research shows that people who develop early independence often become wise guides later in life. They understand struggle without dramatizing it. They offer advice without controlling. They support without suffocating. Strength, when refined, becomes leadership. The question is not whether you are strong. You are. The question is whether you allow that strength to expand beyond endurance. Real power is not just surviving alone. It is choosing connection without losing independence. It is expressing emotion without surrendering control. It is resting without questioning your worth. You were raised to clap for yourself. That internal applause built confidence. Now imagine combining that confidence with conscious vulnerability. Imagine using your resilience not just to endure, but to deepen relationships, to mentor, to inspire. Silence built your foundation. Awareness can build your future. The emotional cost of growing up without applause does not have to define you. It can refine you. It can teach you balance. It can remind you that strength is not the absence of need. It is the courage to acknowledge it without shame. You are not fragile because you feel. You are not weak because you open up. You are powerful because you can choose when to endure and when to connect. That choice is evolution. And evolution is the highest form of strength. And when strength evolves, it stops being a reaction to the past and becomes a decision about the future. You were shaped by silence, by responsibility, by the absence of constant praise, but you are not trapped by it. The same resilience that helped you endure can now help you design a life built on intention, not just survival. There is a powerful lesson hidden in being raised without applause. You do not need an audience to validate your effort. You do not need noise to confirm your worth. You already know how to move without being seen. That skill is rare in a world addicted to attention. Modern psychology is clear about one thing. Intrinsic motivation outlasts external rewards. When your drive comes from internal values, your focus becomes stable. You're not thrown off by criticism. You're not inflated by praise. You operate from principle, not popularity. That is freedom. Imagine what happens when you fully embrace that freedom. You stop comparing timelines. You stop chasing trends. You stop performing for approval. Instead, you build quietly. You improve steadily. You commit deeply. Applause fades. Character compounds. You have already proven that you can function without constant reassurance. You have already proven that you can handle pressure. Now the invitation is bigger. Use that strength consciously. Choose discipline over distraction. Choose progress over performance. Because here is the truth. The world does not reward noise long term. It rewards consistency. It rewards reliability. It rewards those who show up even when no one is watching. You were trained for that. When others hesitate because they are not being validated, you can act. When others quit because recognition is slow, you can persist. When others crumble under criticism, you can adjust and continue. That is leadership. Leadership is not always loud. It is often steady. It is the calm presence in chaos. It is the person who does the work without demanding applause for every step. You do not need more praise to become powerful. You need clarity. You need standards. You need the courage to trust your own judgment, even when it is unpopular. Growing up without applause taught you to rely on yourself. Now let it teach you to refine yourself. Build skills that speak for you. Develop habits that strengthen you. Create a life that does not depend on external validation to feel meaningful. The strongest confidence is not built in front of a crowd. It is built in private decisions, in early mornings, in difficult conversations, in moments when quitting would be easier, but you continue anyway. That is where identity is forged. You were not raised to be admired. You were raised to endure. And endurance, when directed with purpose, becomes unstoppable momentum. So move with intention. Work with integrity. Lead with quiet strength, because applause is optional, but character is everything. And the power you built in silence is more than enough to shape your future. And when you truly understand that character is everything, something shifts inside you. You stop seeing your past as something that hardened you, and you start seeing it as something that prepared you. Being raised without applause was never a disadvantage. It was training. It stripped away illusion early. It forced you to confront reality without filters. It taught you that effort does not always get celebrated, but it always compounds. It taught you that no one owes you recognition, but you owe yourself excellence. That realization is liberating. You are not dependent on moods, trends, or opinions. You are anchored. When the world becomes louder, you do not need to match the volume. When everyone else is racing for visibility, you can focus on value. That focus is your leverage. The absence of constant praise protected you from fragility. You were not conditioned to collapse when criticized. You were not trained to panic when ignored. You learned to stand firm. And standing firm in uncertain times is a rare asset. But now the deeper transformation begins. You can choose to carry forward only the strength, not the silence. You can keep the resilience and release the isolation. You can maintain independence while allowing connection. Strength is not meant to cage you. It is meant to empower you. You do not need applause to act, but you are allowed to appreciate progress. You do not need validation to move forward, but you are allowed to acknowledge growth. There is power in recognizing your own effort without becoming dependent on recognition. This balance is mastery. Psychology teaches that self-determination grows when autonomy, competence, and purpose align. You already have autonomy. You already value competence. Now align them with purpose. Decide what truly matters to you. Direct your endurance towards something meaningful. Because endurance without direction becomes exhaustion. But endurance with vision becomes legacy. You were built to handle pressure. You were shaped to adapt. You were trained to solve. Imagine what happens when all of that is focused intentionally on your goals, your standards, your impact. You become unstoppable in a quiet way. Not loud, not desperate, not attention-seeking. Just steady, relentless, grounded. The world may celebrate noise, but history respects builders. Builders do not wait for applause. They measure progress in bricks laid, not cheers received. Understand that recognition may come late or not at all, but the structure still stands. You are a builder, and your foundation was poured in silence. So move forward without apology. Improve without announcement. Lead without arrogance. Let your work speak. Let your discipline echo. Let your integrity define you. You were never meant to rely on applause. You were meant to create impact, whether it comes or not. And when you fully embrace that truth, you unlock a level of confidence that cannot be shaken by criticism or inflated by praise, because your power does not come from being seen. It comes from being solid. And solid foundations do not need applause to stand.